Welcome to the Drivers Republic podcast, brought to you in association with Dundee Motors, where more Irish drivers find their next car from a trusted dealership than anywhere else. Why? Because Dundeal's trusted dealer program means verified dealerships and the kind of backup that matters, like warranties and history checks, giving you confidence from your very first click. Mark Noble, how are you?
Hello, Paddy Common. I'm all right. We are recording on Fresh Friday today. So to give you a little background, sometimes we get to record on a Thursday, but we're hot off the press this week because so much stuff is happening. There's Elon and Donald are fighting it out on, well, they're probably both asleep now, but they're fighting it out. It's affecting Tesla shares. People last night were going, what's going on? It's been a wild week in motoring.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, and you know, even the last couple of days, it's been a one where a ship has gone down as well, and there's currently a cargo ship, the Morning Midas, bobbling off the coast of Alaska on fire with 3,000 vehicles in it, 800 of which are EVs, and people are saying that it could burn for days as well. So yeah, it's been a topsy-turvy couple of days, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. So the captain of that ship decided to abandon ship, essentially. So I think it's technically a ghost ship now. I don't know. Do people go back to it? I've seen a couple of decent enough sources saying what brand of car were on it. The ship was going from China, or one of brands. So that might give you a somewhat of a clue, but I still don't want to speculate. What I did find interesting was there was some people who are a lot more qualified in marine stuff than I am, and so people were saying, why can't ships contain fires to individual decks? Well, if you've ever brought your car on a ship, you'll know that they all can be strapped down if needs be, and all those straps have holes in the metal of each floor. Right. And that's one of the areas in which fires can spread through ships, because you've got airflow wrapping around the decks, coming up through those holes. The fire can literally spread that way as well, up through those metal, would you call them rivets? I mean, they're huge rivets. So yeah, it's not a thing you want, is a ship on fire.
No, and especially with EVs as well. Now, I don't want to get all tin hatty on it, but there are some facts around that. The fire that comes from an EV is very hard to extinguish, because the heat is incredible, and it can reignite as well. So there is a real danger this ship could burn for days. It's obviously people have to be very careful when one EV goes on fire, but 800 of them potentially at once. That's quite a fire.
That's not what you want.
No, not exactly.
It's another song for Kings of Leon to get working on.
Sorry, we didn't talk about Trump and Musk. The two guys are having a spat, and obviously, we've wondered, would that relationship last? Doesn't look like it has. What is the offshoot of that in terms of motoring?
Well, Trump is claiming that he's been telling Elon for months he was going to do this with the subsidies for electric cars. Yeah. He's tweeting that no one even wants these cars, and maybe some people would agree with that. And then there was accusations towards Elon last night of things that he's been maybe getting up to that he shouldn't be getting up to. Right. The end result was Tesla share prices slid. But look, buy on the dip, which is always good advice. Although I don't know where the dip is with Tesla just right now. It's probably a fragile enough time for the company. Only a few weeks ago, they were, I think, with Elon's son, they were both walking around the front of the White House, and there was a nice red new Juniper Model Y, and they were rubbing the car, and it all looked very, very amicable and friendly. And that now seems to be a car that, well, by its nature, any new car launch can sometimes mean supply is limited. It does seem to be looking like sales are being affected. Last month was the first month that BYD had overtaken Tesla now for sales figures, so they're now essentially a bigger brand. Maybe that was going to happen anyway, but it maybe has probably accelerated the whole thing. But I still think it's too early to say with a new model in the pipeline to say that sales are falling. If you can't physically get a car yet, those sales figures haven't transpired. That doesn't mean people don't have Model Ys on order. It's been the best-selling car in the world for the last few years, so why would the new model be any different?
Like, if you look at the breadth of BYD models, though, I mean, it feels like if you just sit around long enough, another BYD model is going to pop up before the end of the week. There's so many and so much variation and compared to Tesla, which are now effectively sort of in Europe running off two models, really.
Yeah.
And you've driven both of the new versions. Did you see in your own experience a significant jump? Like, I suppose what I'm asking is, are they trying very hard?
I think they are trying very hard. I think the engineers and people who kind of get to build these cars were very aware that there was a suspension issue with the last Model Y, and they wanted to correct that. And they started literally from the tire upwards into the car to make it a better driving car. I think they have achieved that. Having watched some interviews with people who work in Tesla, because it's very easy to remember, it's not a one man company. There's all these other people who make it work. And with how much time he's been spending in the White House over the last few months, you'd kind of wonder, is he even running Tesla? So yeah, I was impressed by it. Have they got a brand image in certain markets? Absolutely. UK and Ireland are two markets where actually people don't really seem to care, but certainly, when you look at German history, German people are very, very keen to not forget their past. They acknowledge it, but equally you can see why, if there were any reasons for them to go, hang on a second here, what the hell is he doing on that stage? You can see why they'd turn around, which might seem rich, but having been to Berlin many times, and you don't have to go far in the city centre to see memorials of World War II and how they're saying, this should never, ever happen again. So maybe they're entitled to be more sensitive than any market, but certainly in Germany, it has affected sales.
And, obviously there's been a bit of a hit in terms of this latest spat with Donald Trump, but you have to imagine in the long run, and possibly, fighting with Donald Trump isn't necessarily a bad thing for your image, right? But so on the European market, you could see a bounce. In its domestic market, there's a potential for a bounce as well. The people who have distanced themselves from Trump, or from Musk rather, and Tesla, might sort of decide, okay, these cars are actually okay because we've seen a change of heart.
Yeah, it could definitely benefit you, because not that there's two sides, but there's probably many sides. But yeah, there's definitely a growing number of people who don't want to be associated with. I'm sure some owners are like, oh God, yeah, I know, but like, I'm kind of married to this car for a while. I'd rather it wasn't connected to, it's connected to. I only saw a report this morning, 2,000 people were surveyed, and even in Chinese markets, there seems to be a lot more trust for German brands. There's a perceived reliability increase from German brands. Brands like Porsche, Audi, Volkswagen, which have been very dominant in Chinese markets in the past. Maybe not as much now, but I just thought that was interesting. US cars were kind of half of what the German trust figures seem to be, or German or trust ratings, and then Chinese stuff was further down below. Now, it was from IAA Mobility, which will happen again in Germany later on this year. So maybe a pinch of salt in that it's maybe somewhat pro-European, pro-German propaganda. But I just thought it was interesting that even in other markets that don't really need to have loyalty to Germany, they seem to have better trust ratings.
The thing that we're, I suppose, forgetting in all of this is that the actual cars themselves are really, really good. Like, I mean, the 3 and the Y, obviously, yeah, there were some suspension issues. Some of the build might have been a bit flaky at some stages, but as EVs and as, even as drivers' cars, they're really good.
Yeah,
and this has kind of been lost in the conversation, I think.
I totally agree with you. Like, you can sling a Model Y around a fast B road into corners and it will respond well. It's got good steering. It's got heavy enough steering. You can change that a little bit. Plenty of power. Yeah, they are good cars to drive. The software seems to be overall pretty reliable. Yes, there were build quality issues when over the last years, no doubt about it. They certainly do seem to have gotten better with time. The only thing, I suppose, two things. One, is it not very difficult to essentially just be a 2-model car brand in 2025? And also, they haven't really, like, the Model Y driving wise is better, but in many other ways it's the same car, it's the same software. You're not getting into that car and being like, oh, this is the new model. What you're seeing as a day-to-day driver hasn't really changed. So that was the thing that struck me. I thought maybe, make it look a bit different on the screens, make it have some new things, but it's the same games. It's the fireplace that still lights up. None of that stuff has changed.
Yeah, and you know, for as a family car, kids love them, and you know that
Yeah.
it still has that attraction. So yeah, well, maybe this is the renaissance of Tesla again. We'll watch this space. Speaking of cars that, speaking of cars that are very very good, I've been driving something this week that I didn't. That has caught me a little bit by surprise. I knew that, you know, and I'd spoken to you about it before, and I knew that you had liked it, but I got the Cupra Born VZ earlier in the week, and holy moly, that thing ticks an awful lot of boxes. It really is very very good. And you know, I knew the car, but I hadn't been in this one in particular. And for what it's offering for the price and everything else, it's definitely one of the most complete packages that I've driven in quite a while. So Born VZ is the performance version of the Born. I'm not sure what VZ means. I can't remember. I think you know.
It's
Something in
it's
Spanish,
just,
isn't it?
it's no. I think it's. I thought it was to signify velocity
Oh, maybe
and
that's it. Yeah,
speed.
need to check that one before need to check, or watch it now. Be on Cars
Speed.
Review. And the stats are pretty impressive: 326 horsepower,
Yeah.
545 newton meters of torque, 0 to 60, 5.6 seconds, 79 kilowatt hour battery range. I'm seeing over 500 kilometers on this comfortably. I've been
Wow.
up and down to Cork. I've been spent a lot of time in Dublin this week, and I will be up again. And I've, as a car to do that trip, it's one of the best I've come across. Massive gripe though. The adaptive cruise control is insanely sensitive. As in, I don't know how to not have it scream at me to keep my hands on the wheel. Like, and I am hands on the wheel, but I've kept about every 30 seconds it tells me to keep my hands on the wheel. Like, I mean, I'm steering straight on the motorway, and I nearly have to flick the wheel every few seconds to stop it from screaming at me.
So you're saying you're a handsy guy, but it's still not enough for the Born.
Yeah, exactly. It's a passionate Spanish beauty.
It just wants your attention. Yeah, I have noticed that quite a bit with the Volkswagen Group cars. You know, I thought that kind of stuff had been bettered because there was a lot of driving the center lane, keep your hands on the wheel, that kind of stuff. I also, so if someone pulls out in front of you at ACC, it really does kind of hammer on the brakes, and then when there is a gap, it takes a little bit too long to realize, oh, there's a gap again. Now I'm going to hammer the car off.
But look, minor gripe might be a software issue, but look, otherwise, 20-inch aero wheels, bucket seats, 13-inch screen. You know, it looks good. The green paint on this one I have is really, really good, and it's not a fortune. Like, look, cars are expensive, but it's not a fortune.
When I reviewed that car in November last year, it was not far off 60 grand, maybe even a little over 60 grand. Now it's hovering in low 40s. And I did check with Cupra at the time. Cupra Ireland
Is this a mistake?
Any chance this car is going to come down in price in the new year? They're like, not at the moment, no. And I was like, okay. And I think, was this the same time as ID3 was making us go, is that a mistake? So that's why even more I was confident asking the question, is this car going to reduce in value? The other thing is, the bucket seats are very firm, no?
Yeah, they are very firm, but I kind of like that. You know, I like that. I just think they hold you up really, really well. I'm fanboying a bit over this thing because I just actually think it just ticks a lot of boxes. But interestingly enough, I am bringing that back on Monday, and I'm getting the ID3 GTX. So It's a back-to-back. Now, I am trying to see if we can hold on to one or the other, so that you and I could go and compare them. But
okay.
You have driven both, though, Mark. So
yeah, the Born still, much like the normal ID3 versus the Born has something else done to it. There's a little bit of Cupra magic in
You're
the
right, though.
I
remember when the first Born came, and at the time I wasn't working for them anymore, but I had been there when the ID3 was launched. I just think they got more time with the Born. And it's maybe not. I know that there is probably something that they've added, but I feel like the Born was a sort of finished ID3. The ID3 was pretty rushed, and when it came out first, it was a bit buggy. And by the time the Born came, I think they had just said, okay, they had more time. It was just like, okay, we can spend more time on your homework. But you're right. I agree. It has better steering. It feels a little bit more poised. It is a bit more sporty. I haven't driven the GTX yet to see whether there's that in it, but yeah, I would agree for now. I think the ID3 GTX, which again is beautiful, looks good, would have to do a lot to be better.
Exactly, and it probably is a slightly softer car, and it doesn't look maybe. And it's not that they're two drastically different looking cars, but the wheels on the Born, the bucket seats obviously do make a big change as well. I think that has the more for it. It looks. And it matches the looks of the car with the performance, maybe a little bit more than the Volkswagen does. But maybe that's the point. If you want something that's a bit more abrasive in the styling, you're going to get the Born.
Yeah, but look, I would encourage anyone who's... but firstly, stop buying SUVs if you don't need them. I mean, this is a proper car. It's a driver's car. I think with the GTX, the GTX badging gives them the get out of jail clause that it doesn't have to be a GTI. I think it can be a little bit softer. Interestingly, your good old pal Thomas Schaefer was out this week saying that we are going to be very surprised by the ID2 GTI. He said,
which still won't be the actual Golf GTI replacement.
No, but he's saying, I think he was speaking to Autocar. He said that we're going to be quite blown away by what these will be able to do. So watch this space on that.
One, they're taking too long to get that car out. But two, yes, I'm sure they know when you're taking so long, it has to be so good. And you make a good point there. Maybe they have actually held back the GTX ID3 because Cupra don't really have anything else in that segment. Volkswagen do have to produce a Golf GTI, and it's going to have to better that car. Otherwise, it's kind of it's a dead duck. I really, it's one of those cars, a bit like an M3 maybe. I can't see how a Golf GTI can exist in a purely electric world. I really, and I think the core fan base of them will really struggle to have a purely electric GTI.
Yeah, I suppose it's going to have to though. I mean, we're looking at fully electric Porsche Boxsters coming, Porsche Caymans coming. I know there's going to be a bit of a pause for a while until we get those ones. So yeah, maybe we're going to have to use them. I think the sound is going to become into play. I think we'll start seeing a few more of those synthetic sounds. Like if you think about it, a Hyundai pretty much nailed it with the Ioniq 5N. No one bats an eyelid at that car, how good it is. It's a great car. It's a brilliant bloody car. So, I think I would imagine that there is an Ioniq 5N littered around many development centres in Germany for lots of reasons, because I think if anyone wants to see a brand that said, okay, we can make an EV that's not a proper petrol head is not going to turn away from, then that's a real one. Couple more things I want to talk about before we get to the MG. You've been to the MG S5 launch, and we'll talk a bit more about that soon. But you've been in the new BMW X3. I saw for me, it looks like it's changed quite a lot. It really has grown up, hasn't it?
It's quite a baby looking X5 now. That was my first impression of it last year when I got to drive it first in Germany. And I get the whole, that looks a bit weird. And time after time, BMW have had that reaction. And then maybe 12 months later, people go, God, that car has really have to grow on me.
There is a sort of theory out there that BMW's current styling is just so ahead of its time that eventually the penny's going to drop with us and we're going to go, oh yeah, I get it.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I will ever get that huge Bugs Bunny grille, but the rear is a little bit weird. But what I will say is, and my car has adaptive suspension in it. It's so good. Like,
so good. You sound like Pep Guardiola. so good.
It's not that it's, look, it is an SUV. I'm not going to get carried away here. It's a diesel. It hasn't even got 200 brake horsepower, but I can remove myself from the car person, and I'm like, if that was a normal person who was buying that as their daily commute, the car that was going to bring the dog to the vets, bring the kids to school, get you into work, it is so good. This is the M Sport one, so it should be a little bit firmer. It's not, but it still handles well. It's got larger wheels. It's still not uncomfortable. The suspension is brilliant.
What's the powertrain? What are we looking at now?
So it's the diesel. It's
Oh,
the
it's old school.
194 brake horsepower. It's got enough torque. It's rear wheel drive. It's not an X drive. The X3 has been one of the most successful BMW cars they've ever made, and I learned this when I was at the launch because in America, in particular, it's a huge market for them with this car. And I'd imagine you know, like I know a few X5 owners, a few of them are on my road, and they all kind of need that car. But I just wonder when you get to a stage in life, if you're doing all right for yourself and you don't need an X5 anymore, now maybe more than ever, the X3 is a kind of a downsizing car that will still not make you feel like you've kind of.
But I guess we're not talking about a small car anymore. I mean, the X3, I presume, is it the same size as the original X5, if not bigger?
It's not as tall as it, but I'm just looking at the window now. But yeah,
it's probably his length and width. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of interior space. There's loads of room for people in the back, and you know you're not cramped in the front. Like you know, sometimes BMW Coupes kind of tend to wrap themselves around you. That's the whole point. Yeah, the interior is definitely not what they used to be. There's definitely more plastic exposed right the way up towards your elbow and above. And some people will like and some people will dislike the new steering wheel and all that. But just as a vehicle tool, it's good. Now, that car outside has 24,000 euros worth of extras. The M Sport version starts at 80,000 euro.
Whoa. An X3 in my head, I know, is a sort of a 40, 50 grand car. Those days are well and truly gone.
They're gone.
So you're starting, what are you starting off at for an X3 now these days?
For the M Sport is
basic enough one. You're still 75, 80 grand, right? So X1, I guess, is now your entry point.
So they start with the X7 on the configurator and they go downwards. I don't know why that is.
Hoping that you might accidentally buy an X7.
Yeah, so the it's 79,595. The M, I will say one thing, and maybe it's because the prices are so expensive these days. The jump to an M Sport used to be bigger. The jump to from an X line to an M Sport now is barely $2,000.
But still. So and put this thing in context for us, if you would. What are we looking at alternatives wise for that
you
car?
Could have the new Audi Q5.
Yeah. Does it light your fire?
You could have. Does it what?
Does it light your fire? The Q5.
Nah.
It's just one of those cars. It's like it's perfectly brilliant at everything, but you're just like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could the Porsche Macan.
You would get a Macan now, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Probably definitely get a coming up to 1 year old one for similar, probably better residuals. Yeah, there's. Look,
you'd get a nice Volvo, wouldn't you?
Well, you'd get an XC60.
Yeah,
which would be a good comparison. Yeah.
Anyway, but look, it looks good-ish. I know it looks it's diverse and you know.
The rear overhang is a little bit clunky. The rear of the car in general, as I spin it around here in the configurator, your configurator is quite good actually. BMW, it actually looks. There's a bit of a Cooper look off it when you look straight on. Fermentor, yeah, kind of.
Right.
So look, at least we've established cars are definitely not getting any cheaper, but the BMW X3 is a very good car to drive.
If people want to watch a review of this vehicle,
haven't filmed it yet. There is a video from Munich last year. All right, I was filming it in a retired German airbase, which even had bunkers in it.
But by the time people are listening to this, there may well be.
Well, that's
on cars.
That's true. Go have a look. It's black and it's when I got into it, I had like 1,200 kilometers in the range, which is always nice.
Right. Yeah. So yesterday you were in Dublin and I was as well, but I wasn't there at the launch of the new MG S5. I've just watched your video review on Nobby on Cars and interestingly, you started off saying, game changer is not a word that it's a word that we hear a lot of and it's thrown around like tea and coffee, but MG are on a good run, aren't they? I mean, you've said to me before, you said, look, you've always thought that MG, nearly made a brilliant car. that they would have something that was really good at lots of things, but maybe just not quite there yet. This looks like they might be nearly there, though, right?
Yeah, and I'd say the same for the new HS, which you have also tried and tested. I just two cars that spring to mind, like the Cyberster. I suppose your expectations of that car are purely based on looks alone are so
it's
high.
theatre. Yeah,
there's a few shortcomings, but it's still. I mean, look, I still wouldn't say don't buy one. Like if you like that kind of car, there's nothing else out there in the market with a brand new plate on it like that.
No.
Equally, the MG4 X Power, it just wasn't. I was like, oh, yeah, I don't know. Like, you know, again, the standard car is absolutely brilliant for what it does, price and everything. They've even thrown in a rear wiper now on the newer versions of it.
It's a nice looking car as well.
Yeah, I think it lays reasonably well. You see a lot of them as taxis, which is always a good litmus test. But no, the new MG S5, which is kind of a clunky name, I believe that Audi own the S5 combination of letter and number, so I think that's why the MG S5 has to be in that sequence.
Okay. So size wise, are we similar to the HS? Big enough?
Maybe not quite as big, but they are calling it a B segment car, which
So Hyundai Kona sized.
Yeah, that was one of the comparisons yesterday. EV3 obviously, and Skoda Elroq. Which Elroq seems to be absolutely flying for Skoda. Looking at
I'm seeing them
figures
everywhere. I've been up and down to Dublin a couple of times this week and stopped at various charging points, and just they're in the wild everywhere.
Yeah, but even like in European terms, it seems to be doing really.
Yeah, was it best-selling EV Skoda in Europe?
Yeah, which just when you think, is there not enough of these types of cars? Someone goes and launches a new one and it takes off again. So, you know, when people say, why are everyone buying SUVs? Well, they're Skoda obviously knows something we don't. But the thing about the MG S5 is it pretty much undercuts all of these cars. So it's 29,995 for the smaller battery.
Which is 49 kilowatt hours, range of 340. And the bigger battery is 64 with a range of 480.
Battery, yeah. Now, will you get 480? Everyone knows the story at this stage. 28 minutes charging time, 10 to 80. There's a 170 brake and a 230 brake, both rear wheel drive. You can only get the top trim in one battery, but you can get the entry trim in either battery.
And the exclusive 34,995. So is that the most you can spend on one?
That's if you want the white paint is included. Anything else is €700, and delivery charge I think is either the same or is 800 quid. You
said in the video 139 kilowatt DC charging on the larger battery, 120 kilowatt on the smaller battery. So even on the smaller battery, that's really fast charging.
It is. Now, I would like to see again with MG. I haven't ever really seen the top charging speeds as claimed, but look, there's lots of terms and conditions there. Could be on my part as well. Temperature, state of charge, all that stuff.
That website, EV Database, have you ever been on that?
Yeah.
That's a great one for showing charging curves. So it'll give you an idea of what it peaks and when it peaks at. Drag coefficient 0.27, which is a good CD figure for that. Space in the back, how's that?
Great. I had a measure tape in my bag. Probably should have done it, but just for seat of the pants feeling, I don't think there's much in it between the Elroq and the MG for rear space. It's 2730 millimeter wheelbase, which is very good.
Boot space is decent.
Boot space, yeah, it's mid 400s. There's a droppable floor, no frunk in it, but still spaces to put your cables. I like that there's underneath the floor that can drop, there's a kind of a tool area and it just says tools.
I saw that, yeah.
Narrow.
And you said they've given us physical buttons because the European market wants that, but then China, they don't have them. So they're listening to us over here as well, which is good.
I thought it was interesting they can physically adapt the interior slightly. You can see why maybe Chinese people are light years ahead of us when it comes to gadgets, and they're over the whole physical button thing. They have enough in stock apparently to get us through the next whatever's left of the month, 6 months, and like 29,995.
Yeah,
that's an interesting price.
So when you were there, you spoke to Natasha Maher, who's in charge of marketing and PR for MG Motor Ireland, and what did she have to say?
Well, we'll have a little chat with her now. She's basically been with MG since they relaunched, I suppose is the way to describe it, in Ireland. So we caught up with her inside an MG S5. Well, I'm here sitting in the brand new MG S5 because we're talking to the lady who is MG in Ireland. Her name is Natasha Maher. She is marketing and PR manager, crisis manager. Not that there would be a crisis. How are you? Welcome to the podcast.
I'm good. Thank you very much for having me.
So we're sitting in this car today, which has been described as a competitor to the Hyundai Kona, the Skoda Elroq, the Kia EV3. Mm-hmm. How does that feel?
Yeah, look, it's a nice feeling. It's obviously a very competitive segment, but we're pretty confident in what we're offering in the MG S5 that we can still stand to those competitors with a very good price point.
To kind of describe the car, how would you, because obviously this is a podcast, how does the car look in your opinion?
Look, from our point of view, it is a huge step forward in design and quality from our first generation vehicles. So we really feel that we can rival those competitors while keeping an impressive price.
Speaking of the price, so there's two different trims, there's two different battery sizes.
Yes.
When you're negotiating or you're talking to the office about the price of a car like this, and you realise you kind of have a good entry point in the market, how excited does that make you feel?
I'm actually generally quite conflicted with it because I feel there's a perception around around MG that we're the bargain brand or the cheaper version, which from my point of view, trying to build a brand, I'm always nervous about. So when they come in with these amazing entry points, which are great to have, I always have that little bit of a feeling like, oh, is it a little bit too low? Are people just going to assume it's missing something? Which they're not.
In some ways, it's a fair, maybe, or an unfair assumption. You know, you have cars in the market that continually undercut the competition. So does that? You're saying that doesn't always mean you're skimping on the driving dynamics, the tech that you get in the car, the safety equipment.
Exactly. And like, I'm only speaking from an MG point of view here, obviously, but we certainly think our cars are very well spec'd, and that is something that we aim to while keeping that price point.
How long now since MG? It's obviously a name that's people will be familiar with. There's a lot of heritage there. Obviously, they're now a Chinese-owned company. They have offices in London, amongst other places. Mm-hmm. But you kind of had to relaunch MG as a brand in Ireland. How hard or easy was it to do?
Do you know what? It was incredibly fun, to be fair, and we got a lot of freedom with the brand, which is great, which often doesn't happen. In terms of creative and stuff, usually you're very restricted. Launching a brand is always difficult, and we launched in the middle of COVID, if you remember, 2020. So we had vehicles land into showrooms about 10 days before we went into a full lockdown, which is far from ideal. So, I mean, we're trying to get people to trust this new brand, although be it there is a heritage there, it is essentially new, now Chinese owned. And trying to get people to trust a new brand is difficult, never mind if they can't see, touch or drive the vehicle. So that was obviously challenging. So we did as much as we could on socials and videos and all that kind of stuff. And actually the press were one of the key reasons we were able to advertise the brand in that, because you were still able to work and we were able to get it out, and that's how people were able to interact with the brand at the time. Then once we came out of COVID and we launched, we hit the global semiconductor shortage like everybody else. So we had this massive buzz around the launch of the ZS EV, and then we had no cars. So like, as a new brand, the key thing is to have cars on the road, to have people seeing them everywhere. That's how people get to know the cars, get to trust the brand. And we did have orders and it was piling up, but we just couldn't deliver. So I suppose the real kind of success story for us probably came then with MG4, because finally everything aligned in terms of orders, stock. And look, that car's been incredibly successful. It's really helped the brand establish itself in Ireland. And then I suppose last year, EV sales obviously kind of started to dwindle. We very quickly pivoted towards introducing hybrids to our lineup. So now we offer a little bit of something for everybody.
And you're talking about the MG3 there.
MG3,
in particular, I suppose.
ZS hybrid as well, obviously, and our new HS plug-in hybrid.
So those days when you were probably on Zoom and you heard from other places, okay, we're just about to launch the car. Right, we've no semiconductors. How testing for you as an individual were those days? I mean, you can't really. You did your job interviewing it out for MG. They couldn't have foresaw that stuff. No. You don't know how you're going to react.
No. Look, it's every job has its ups and downs, and it is tough. Particularly, we're a very small team, so we really do live and breathe it, and it means a lot to us. We're all very passionate, and myself in particular, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So, I mean, if something doesn't go the brand's way, obviously I blame myself. It's my fault. Even though it's stuff that you can't control, and at the time, it was long days when you're trying to establish a brand. We were giving it everything, so yeah, it was hard, but I mean, everything kind of settles down and you get through it, and we're really happy with it where we are now, so it all worked out.
I remember Car of the Year refresher day last year. You drove in an MG Cyberster. No one, I mean, I'd seen the car in the flesh in London. It was a prototype essentially car. Nothing in it was for function. It was all just to look at it. You rocked in. A load of journalists came running out saying, "Give us a look." You know, to have that kind of car in your back pocket, how does that work out?
Oh, look, it's great. It's such a showstopper. It's so much fun to have. And like, you know, obviously from driving it, you can't go 10 foot down the road and someone's stopping you to see what it is or taking pictures, and those doors, like it's cool, and it gives, I suppose, a real confidence boost in terms of what the brand can do and where we can bring the vehicles. And it's always a nod to the heritage, but it's just great fun, let's be honest. I mean, what's not to like about a two-door convertible?
The BMW Z4, there's the Mazda MX-5. There are, obviously there's Porsche Boxster. There are cars in the atmosphere that serves that similar purpose. But to have a fully electric car that does all those things, as you say, it is a showstopper. You've got two motor options, so loads and loads of power, proper roadster. Why do you think MG made that car?
Look, I suppose the brand answer, the official answer, is it was always to show what they can do, because I suppose the last couple of years, if you look at the cars they produce, it's family SUVs, it's your runarounds, it's your urban city cars. So I think particularly the design side of the company, they just wanted to show, like, we're still here, we're still able to do this. And obviously it was 100 years anniversary, so it's very much bringing back that sporting heritage and that true MG DNA that people, I suppose, older generations are familiar with.
So just back to this car now that we're in now, the MG S5.
Yes.
Which is quite a long model name.
It is. Our model names, it can be a little bit funny. It's letters, it's numbers, then it's a middle of both. I'd love if there was a little bit more consistency, but unfortunately that's not something we're in charge of.
It has a 5-star NCAP safety rating. It has a 7-year warranty. For someone who's maybe, you know, they probably are, again, aware of the name MG, because for so many reasons. But an Irish customer who maybe hasn't tried them before, maybe hasn't gone into a showroom, you know, this feels like a car that you're really putting your best foot forward. What would you say to that person who's maybe driving a Toyota for years, driving a Skoda for years? Well, you know, what would you say to them if you had their ears now?
I just ask them to test drive it, just give it a chance and be open to it. Look, Irish customers are incredibly brand loyal, and if they're loyal to your brand, that's great for you, but there's so many more alternatives out there now, and we really do deliver as much spec for nowhere near the price point. And often actually our dealers will say to us, if I can just get someone into the car, the deal is done. And I think that speaks for itself in a way, that once people drive the cars, they can really see the quality and the value that's there. Okay,
so are your days less, I'm not going to say less hectic, are there less problems that come down these days compared to when you started an MG?
I mean, there's always problems, but they're never really that big, are they? Look, from my point of view, I should say, like, I always want more videos, more imagery, more assets. That's always what I'm screaming out for. A lot of the times the European central assets aren't great, so then we're trying to create our own, which is time consuming. But no, I think it's definitely less hectic. But this year coming, so for the next 12 months, we're looking at launching a number of vehicles. So I would imagine that's not going to last very long.
Okay, just plenty of semiconductors and you'll be happy. Okay, Natasha, good luck with the, what's the name of the car again?
MG S5 EV.
Thank you very much for talking to us.
No problem, thank you.
Let's take a quick break and we will be back to discuss the SIMI figures for May and the rollout of new EV charging points.
Welcome back to the Drivers Republic podcast, which is brought to you by Dundeel Motors, home of the Trusted Dealer Programme, helping you buy with confidence from verified dealerships. Welcome back to part 2 of this week's podcast. Always interested in the SIMI or SIMI sales figures, because they paint a picture and they paint trajectories, or maybe not, as the case can be. And you love numbers, Paddy. You're a nerd.
I love a SIMI figure. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's been a sort of a shaky enough start to the year. Like, I mean, it's fine-ish. but the registrations are down nearly 9% compared to this time last year. Very much business as usual at the business end. Toyota are still out in front, 14.82% of the market, fending off strong competition from Hyundai and Volkswagen, second and third. Again, and we've talked about this before, the Hyundai Tucson continues its reign as the best-selling model so far this year, staying ahead of the Toyota RAV4 and the Yaris Cross. Mark, people keep buying the Hyundai Tucson. Like still.
I was behind a very smelly 2018 one yesterday, a diesel one. Oh my God, the amount of smoke coming out of the back of it. I had to turn my aircon off to stop breathing in the fumes. Yeah, look, it's one of those cars that, you know, you'd get another one. One of my neighbours had a white one a few years ago. This year she changed to a green one.
But it's a remarkable story though, because I mean, it's a very good car, but Hyundai seem to be able to master getting people back and back and back again into their cars, and it must be obviously a measure of their aftercare, their dealer network, because you know it's still a fresh enough car, but it's not a new car, and it's fending off a lot of competition, especially from other powertrains. I wonder, is it the fact as well that this is not an EV and that it's one of the sort of last few remaining that gives you various options in powertrains?
Yeah, well, you can get a plug-in hybrid version of it if you like. One of my other neighbours who just got one, I look over at the car every night. It's charged and charging, and reliability. You get roadside assistance. I'm sure the dealers are ringing you to go, look, I have someone ready to buy your used one when you're coming in to pick a new colour. Again, styling, like as you say, that car was first unveiled in 2020 and first landed in, I think, sort of 2021.
It was very radical looking at the time, and I think it's managed to just balance out then, because it was really radical when it came out and so different from the one before.
That angel wing face, which is kind of the cascading lights that are daytime running lights and headlights, you know, it still looks very, very fresh. It's ridiculous how, and I don't know how they got it approved and still got the NCAP rating they did. The indicators are buried in the lower bumper.
Yeah.
And if you're a tailgater or you're right up at Tucson's bum in traffic, you can't see what way it's indicating. Now that says more about you as a driver, I get it, but it's weird how low they are. And the Sportage from Kia is the same. Nice interior. It's you can see why. It's same with the Qashqai. Well, the Qashqai maybe isn't as popular as it used to be, but people just bought them again and again. It's the Toyota Yaris of mid-size SUVs, in my opinion, and I think it's going to be a tough job replacing the design of it. It's going to be one of those ones where you're like, don't want to do anything too drastic. People really like that one.
Yeah, you're right. Good for EVs. They are bucking the trend, I suppose. Electric vehicles registrations, I should underline, are up 23% year on year, even as petrol is down 13%, diesel is taking a 22% hit. So you could sort of crudely say the drop off in diesel down 22%, EVs up 23% is sort of balancing the books there. Lots of people have sort of saying to me, "Oh, you know, are these genuine figures?" I think we would imagine that, right? There's a bit of both going on. There will be pre-regging, always happens, but we've lots of new entrants. You know, Inster, Renault 5, lots of new smaller EVs and more affordable EVs, and I think that can account for some of these registrations, right?
Yeah, I'd imagine so, and probably more so when we see June, and obviously July will probably have a bit of a boost, but a bit of a boost in terms of Inster, definitely, because that car seems to be doing quite well anyway. But I know people have been waiting for them, so I'm sure not everyone who's looking for an Inster in Ireland right now actually has it on their driveway just yet. Same with the Renault 5. The Renault 4 is going to come on stream, so I think this will probably be a decent enough year. Will it be a hard year to replicate in 2026? Maybe, depends when it comes to EV sales, at least. Maybe not overall car sales. Yeah, and again, maybe those kind of cars just are being a bit of fun, capturing the imagination, a bit of personality. So, more of them, please.
More, exactly, yeah. Gearbox choices are changing too. 73.5% of all new cars registered this year so far are automatic. Manual gearboxes are now officially on the endangered list, which is sad to see, really, isn't it?
It is.
For the purists, but I suppose for people who sit in traffic all day, they couldn't care less.
I did the school run today in my own car, wearing flip flops with a manual gearbox.
Love
I'm
it.
still able to
Living your best life. Yeah.
Will there be a day though where it'll be removed from the driving test? That's
I know in some driving instructors, and I know, having spoken to them, that they've had to change their cars because the young folk coming on aren't bothered with the manual. So they've said that, they're under pressure because people are coming on and saying, the smaller operators are saying, I don't want to drive manual. I want to drive automatic. So that
is the manual gearbox now the algebra of the leaving cert? You're never going to use it, but it's good to.
Well, it's good to. I keep saying, even to my own young fella, I said, look, you're going to have to learn, because you could be going on holidays. You go to a rental car and you'll be handed a 6-year-old Citroen C1 for the manual gearbox. You don't want to be stuck. But it's a good skill to have. And look, for someone like I like a manual. The fun of an MX-5 on a Sunday morning or an i11 with a manual gearbox is it's beautiful. Some of the other highlights, interestingly enough, looking at the figures, Alpine 9, Alpine this period so far. So I think it's obviously the smaller model, which you are driving on Monday coming, right?
Yeah, but I did see an A110 freshly off a truck a few weeks ago. I wonder, has that been registered?
Yeah, maybe friend of the show, Wayne McCarthy, might have had something to do with that. We'll be talking to Wayne in a few weeks, and he has delivered some of these to some customers down in this direction, I know.
But there's no doubt some of them will be the A290, which are being road tested by Alpine /Renault/Dacia people as we speak.
I really look forward to hearing your thoughts on that now. I'm very jealous I'm not there, but it will be a fun little car. It looks really, really good. And yeah, you gave me a figure. I don't actually have it here. I must try and look it up. You saw some amazing figure about BMW M5s, didn't you?
Yeah, I checked there only 2 weeks ago. It's kind of my go-to thing once a week. I think we're at 90 something now for M5s.
Wow,
registered this year.
That is crazy. And poor old Subaru, 6 Subarus this year. Down 45% from the same period last year.
There's a dealership in Bray as you come down the hill into the start of Bray town centre. Yeah. And I think they sell Hondas as well. And every week I have a little look in as I drive by in the darkness. And same cars just sit in the showroom. And I do, it's not like, they're not you can't even say they're not even trying. They're beyond not even trying to sell cars.
Alfa Romeo, 28 cars, down 22%, despite the fact they have a new junior. And Jaguar,
I saw one of them last week.
Yeah, good looking car. And Jaguar obviously have stopped making new cars, so they are down 86%. They've done 6 units this year, so they have 0.01% of the market. Ferrari have 2 though, 2 cars registered this year, 100% more than last year when there was 1.
Anecdotally heard, but from someone in BMW, that BMW are taking some sales away from Porsche this year, in particular segments of cars, obviously.
Porsche having a decent year, 29%, sorry, almost 30% increase, 289 units versus 223. So they sell more than Honda, Jeep, DS, Polestar, SsangYong, Alfa Romeo.
Since I last spoke to you, I was driving the Macan Turbo.
Which
fun. About €140,000 car, carbon packs, every kind of things. Some people miffed by the fact that it's a turbo badge in the back, but what I can definitely tell you is
it goes like a turbo.
It is unbelievably quick, unbelievably. So it's like 580 brake horsepower normally, but then if you launch it, you got 629, I think.
I'm just looking at the top 10 and sort of looking a little beyond the top 10. So the top 13 vehicles include the Toyota RAV4, the Toyota Yaris Cross, the Toyota Corolla, the Toyota CHR, the Toyota Yaris, and the Toyota Corolla Cross. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars in the top 13 vehicles.
Unbelievable.
That is
unbelievable. Any Land Cruisers in there yet? No, don't think so.
No, not quite yet. But yeah, the top 10 for anyone who wants them of vehicles, right, remains Tucson, RAV4, Toyota Yaris Cross, Kia Sportage, Skoda Octavia, Toyota Corolla, Skoda Kodiaq, Hyundai Kona, Volkswagen Tiguan, Volkswagen Golf, and then you have a load more Toyotas after that. So that's the top 10 in Ireland. But
I'm kind of surprised the Golf that it's in there so high. You just don't see as many anymore.
No, but I'm speaking to Martin Cardiff, who's coming onto the show, who's head of sales for Volkswagen recently, and he says they've just had a bit of a research of those recently. It's actually they're about the same units as they sold last year, but there's no such thing really as an entry level Golf now. You can't go in and get a bog basic small engine comfort line. They're fairly high end things, but there's still a big demand for them. So yeah, not bad at all. And it's outselling the CHR, which is a very popular Toyota.
It's one of those you could you're only man.
Well, look, I mean, they're so universal. You get into it, it's going to feel you know where everything's going to be. It feels great, and and it's going to hold its value as well. So what a car,
And hatchbacks are better to drive.
Well, they just are, yeah. Other big news this week for EV drivers in particular, 53 new high-power recharging hubs are being rolled out across Ireland's national road network. That's 175 new fast and ultra-fast chargers backed by nearly €8 million in grant funding. All of them expected to be in place by the end of the year. None in Dublin, none in Louth, none in Meath, none in Carlow, but in lots of other areas, particularly where they've been neglected before. Lots in Donegal, it's huge investment there in Donegal. Some down here as well in Cork, which is good as well. If you want to see the full list, TII have the full list of where they are. You and I were talking about this offline. There seem to be a fair few in Applegreen outlets. Look, we welcome this. People, you and I use this network quite a lot. There's still a lot of gaps, right?
Yeah, so like Waterford getting some is definitely welcome because that seemed to be a black spot. Wexford, I think, is reasonably okay served. There are some Ionities in Wexford, for example. So is this part of the one Eamon Ryan launched a few years ago where it was like every 65 kilometres?
Yeah,
was going to be
less than 60 kilometres. It was rolled out by Minister Dara Cleary this week. Dara O'Brien this week, and
yes.
It was it's part of Zevi. No word on cost yet, but hopefully they're not super expensive like some of them. Like I charged the other day at Fota in the ID Buzz on an e-power one, and it was 40 odd quid. That's big battery and expensive kilowatts, but you're kind of going, okay, I that was diesel pricing basically because for the range, because that's a heavy car, not particularly efficient, and I if it was a diesel transporter, I would have got probably 700 kilometers from that equivalent amount. So you have to be careful on that. So hopefully these aren't overly expensive because it will sort of defeat the point.
Well, if you're getting government subsidies, it doesn't really seem fair that you can then go and rinse the motorist.
No.
But when does anyone care about rinsing the motorist in this country? Yeah, I mean, the Circle K, the Apple Greens, they're all about 70 cents.
70, some of them
5 now, okay.
Some of them I've seen have 75. Yeah, sorry, I can be stand correct on that, but yeah, they're in and around that ballpark anyway. One gripe I have, and I don't know if you've noticed it, is some of them vary on what they will take as a security deposit. So I was at Ionity the other day, and there was in Cashel, there was a bit of a fault with the machine, so it kept taking €40 from my account, and I think I was down sort of 160 or more after a couple of seconds because of the fault. So, and you're waiting for that to come back then, but Apple Green takes €1. Circle K I think is 40 or €50. Like how can Apple Green take €1? And another is taking such a huge difference in price, so because often if it can be just that there's a bit of an issue and it just keeps taking, and then you're down a few hundred quid.
I think it's because Apple Green sell Mr. Beast chocolate bars and Circle K don't.
Right. Okay.
That could be part of it.
One. So I need to do that.
They're worth a try. So you're saying if let's say you need €40 worth of juice, metaphorically speaking, on top of that they will take 50 quid.
No, it's a deposit. So it takes it, and then the theory is obviously it subtracts that and you get charged. But like if you're on a bank holiday, for example, like so I was using a Bank of Ireland card. It was a bank holiday Saturday. and I didn't see that money till Tuesday returned. So
might be worth for those who have things like Revolut using that kind of company, because I know from my own
Revolut
experience,
does it immediately.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
Yeah, and look, you can see why that's another. So you were 160 quid down at one point. You know, if someone is choosing between feeding their kids until Tuesday, or oh well, you know, I was trying to be green and my money's somewhere in this huge multinational oil company's bank account.
No, sorry, it would be Ionity's, but in the case of Circle K or whatever, I think it was the fault was with the Ionity machine, so that was the one that was tripping itself up. So it was taking the deposit, I put it in, and it was showing a fault. You try again, it was but each time it was taking that amount of money, and then it takes a few days for it to just go, oh, sorry, you didn't charge. Here you go. Whereas if you use something like Revolut, it seems to return it pretty much immediately. So interesting on that, you know. But yeah, look, good news all round. And then look, you know, in terms of charging, we need to see better charging. We need to see more of it. We're getting to the point now, and I'm noticing it, and I'm sure you are as well, Mark, with the increase in the number of EVs, bigger footprint of these around, the charging points are starting to get clogged up.
Yeah, it depends where you're going, I think, but yeah. And I've seen all kinds of people, you know, whether they're doing loops at car parks waiting for a spot, and then the next person pulls in, doesn't realize this person's been doing loops for the last half an hour. I've seen charger rage firsthand. We still need, you know, it's great putting 3 and 4 chargers into a super value car park, but that is also a very congested super value car park with Biddy, who's also trying to do a weekly shop and, you know, is reversing her Nissan Micra badly sideways, or Tom, let's not be sexist about it. So yeah, I'd love us to just have some more hubs. I'd love us to have some like they do in the UK, where you just go to a place either where there's not even a toilet, but there's just loads of chargers, or there is a kind of a toilet amenity area, have a picnic, whatever you want.
A couple of food trucks, a barber shop, you know, things like, because you know, if you're able to go and do, you know, have a bit of grub and, you know, get a haircut or whatever, you know, I think that would be useful enough. So
it is. I think you'd probably want to be Richard Branson or Alan Sugar to be in that headspace just now. If I was, and what I mean by that, I suppose, is 2 things. One, to have the entrepreneurial foresight, but also the cash reserves, because you'd be kind of thinking on the one hand what you just said there, going, oh God, like there's someone who's, you know, waiting for days to get their money back. Do I really want to be investing money in something connected with electric cars? The other side is, well, look, they're not going away. So yeah, first in gets to charge the most money first. I think I've discussed before. I've been to Norway, where Circle K moved all the fossil fuel pumps to the back of the forecourt, and the main forecourt is with a shelter is electric chargers. You know, if someone could do that first, and then others will go, oh, do you see the one they have there, Junction 14, whatever it is? You know, Junction 14, in fairness, isn't a bad setup. It was
it's
very
decent,
very decent. You know, probably even still today, but certainly when it launched. So we need more of that, and you know, this is definitely good. Just how long will it take? Will we be looking at more cases of Circle K chargers covered up for 6 months and beyond because they haven't spoken to ESB or vice versa? And
yes, the one in Middleton, which is still, I think that's been covered up since about September last year. I'd say we're not far off a year of that being coming soon. Like, they should just not put the coming soon sign up. Just cover them up in black stuff.
I think the ones in Circle K at the port are now uncovered. I think I was there a few weeks ago.
Good news.
So yeah, I mean, look, I will also say, there's an electric car looking at me here on the driveway. It's only ever used a public charger once in 12 months of ownership, and that's only because there was a last minute decision that there was a long round trip needed, and I just drove down to actually that Super Value car park, got a spot, was back again half an hour later. But you know, the huge amount of the charging is done at home.
Yeah, that's
very convenient,
and it's
very
the
low
cheapest.
cost.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's the cheapest. Yeah.
Right, so have you ever wondered what it's actually like to be a car journalist? From driving the latest models before anyone else, to early starts at press launches, long hours editing videos, and the occasional airport dash. It's not all glamour, but it's definitely not boring. In this next segment after the break, we're lifting the curtain on the world of motoring journalism, how it works, what goes on behind the scenes, and what makes it one of the best and sometimes strangest jobs out there. Whether you're imagining track days and supercars or long days in a diesel SUV in the rain, this one's for you, and that's coming up next. Welcome back to the Drivers Republic podcast, brought to you in association with Dundee Motors, where more Irish drivers find their next car from a trusted dealership than anywhere else. Why? Because Dundeal's Trusted Dealer program means verified dealerships and the kind of backup that matters, like warranties and history checks, giving you confidence from your very first click. So, Mark, you're in the hot seat. I'm sure when you go to a dinner party and a discussion comes up, so what do you do when you say that you're a car journalist, content creator, general YouTube superstar? There must be the usual question of, that must be the best job in the world, which of course it is. But I thought it'd be a good idea to give the listeners an idea of just how it actually is. We've both done the job at various stages, and I've been on both sides of the journalist and PR side, so I think it might be interesting to give an idea of what is involved. So, Mark, tell us, firstly, how did you get into car journalism? Was it something you always wanted to do, or did you sort of fall into it?
It wasn't necessarily something I always wanted to do. I've always had an interest in cars. I was only reminded of photographs there the other day where I was in a little Tykes car at maybe one, and somehow I had taken a Volkswagen sticker and put it on the front to make it a Volkswagen little Tykes car.
Great. They look good.
My mother also worked in Motor Distributors Limited many, many years ago and had things like Mark 1 Golfs as company cars, a yellow one that had a flashing light on the dashboard to tell you when to change gear to save fuel.
Amazing. Right in the middle of an oil crisis, I suspect.
Yeah, and that car was a bit of a Monday morning car, and Stephen O'Flaherty's son, Michael, who my mother worked for, sent it back to Volkswagen. He said, that car is not up to the challenge.
Right.
So
and they took it.
The car, I think they did, but probably MDL. This is these were at the time people who had recently built Beetles and stuff in Dublin, so they maybe had a bit of clout.
Yeah, of course.
So no, the love for cars was always there. Obviously, I worked in radio for a long time, and that was all taken along fine. And it was just one day where actually Skoda came to the radio show because they were doing something to do with the Pope Francis at the time. They gave him a
Skoda Rapid. That
was it. Yeah. And Honda were doing something similar. They wanted us to do a challenge, and I didn't have any cameras or anything like that, but I did a little bit of presenting in my time, and it just kind of went from there. And I spotted the gap. There was only really sort of Bob Flavin and a couple of others doing video in Ireland. Bob by far had the biggest channel, still does. Yeah. And
Sinead McCann was doing it as well. Yeah,
Sinead was doing it for Cars Ireland.
Still is.
And still is. I only bumped into her at a filming spot there 2 weeks ago.
We need to get Sinead on the show, by the way. Sidebar, definitely.
Yes, she's a lovely lady. Very good at what she does. I don't think realizes how good she is. No, she does. To be honest with you.
Definitely
not. So yeah, it just went from there, and the grind was hard because, as some people put it in brands, they get lots of requests from people looking to just drive cars for free. So they have to weed out those people. And look, the radio background probably helped that I wasn't just a randomer looking for cars. I didn't necessarily have an audience or anything then, but I had a radio audience, so maybe that helps. So it just went from there. I was continually saying no to press trips because I was working full time, and anytime I did go on a press trip, I had to use annual leave. So yeah.
Do you remember what your first press car was?
First press car was, I suppose technically it was a Skoda Elrock.
Wasn't an Elrock.
Sorry, I'm confusing so many names. What's the other one? What's the
Enyaq?
What's the petrol? What's the petrol Elrock?
The Karoq.
Karoq, that was it.
I was thinking it. You only started last week.
I knew it ended with "ok."
Very good. Right, so look, what's a typical week actually look like for a motoring journalist, or for you? Is it sort of all car launches or talk us through what is an average week?
It does change. Some weeks there are local launches, some weeks there's international launches, sometimes there's multiple cars to be reviewed in that 1 week because I've probably taken on too much, or there's just loads of new cars coming on stream last minute. So the one constant is it will evolve cars, but how the week looks from one end of the week to the next can kind of differ.
So Monday morning is right. You're returning a car. You're returning your car to our good friends, generally an automotive team, Gordon, Scott, Fergus, etc. And so that's a bit of hanging around. That's sort of dropping one car back, waiting for the next one, chatting to the colleagues, if you like. Not that you work with them, you sort of just see them a lot. And then from there, you take the car. Do you immediately go and film it? Do you get to know it? You know, at this stage, you're doing it a while now. Do you have that sort of muscle memory of getting in and knowing exactly what feels right and what doesn't?
I would never film the day I collect the car because you do want to get to know it.
By the fact it's actually clean as it's going to be, but still.
Yes, well, there's summertime's a little bit easier to deal with that, but there's often times, even only last week, where you drive a totally spanking new car, freshly washed, prepared, and you're on the M50 and a truck goes by you and it's destroyed. So sometimes I do wash the cars again, depends how bad they are. Sometimes I do it by hand, sometimes I'll bring to a car wash, just depends. You do get a sense pretty quickly now of, you jump into a car and you notice straight away. Like with the X3 this week, it was like, oh yeah, no, this is good. So you do get that very quick initial test of how do the brakes feel, what's the suspension like, is it sluggish, how clunky is the screen to try and find, just, you know, every week. Imagine when you're setting up your car, when you buy a new car, you go and hopefully the dealer helps you connect your phone and do all this stuff.
You got to do that once.
You do it once. You do it every few weeks. I have to go through my phone and delete all the cars, cars off my Bluetooth because I've got so many. So you've got to do it every time, and then it's like, oh, where's all the bings and the bongs to turn off? So anyway, then you're on the way home, and then it's probably school collection time, and you park the car literally for the day, or maybe you're driving that evening to go to swimming lessons, and the kids actually help subconsciously because they'll complain about, you know, the windows too high, the handles,
exactly,
can't see out, can't reach the handle. There's no rear leg room. Can you move your seat forward? Although it's not, you're not asked that politely. It's more someone's booting the back of the passenger seat to say, "I've no leg room." So yeah, you kind of you get to know the car a little bit. You do your daily stuff. You try and put your head and shoes in the typical customer for that car. You're noticing fuel efficiency, you're noticing range, you're noticing what's the boot like, and all those.
But one thing I've always liked about your videos in particular is that you seem to have a very good eye for detail. You seem to notice the smaller bits. Is that a real concerted effort, or is that just what you're like? You just take in those details?
I think it's part of doing that job, and you have to, I mean, look, there are times I will, particularly at a local launch, I'll miss something, and I think it's really important part of the job. You know, if you are calling yourself a motoring journalist, any type of journalism is about details. It's about facts. It's about fact checking. It's about, you know, going above and beyond the extra points that a normal person could see. Like, even if, you know, we were talking about reading about Elon and Musk, okay, everyone can talk about Elon and Musk, but like, give me 8 individual facts that I haven't heard of today about Elon versus Musk. Sorry, Trump versus Elon. You know, because everyone can read the Sky News headline. So like, it's your job to be in the thick of it, to notice, okay, there's underneath the armrest in this particular car, they've put a little slider for you to keep a car park ticket. Or, you know, my own dad only a few weeks ago, he bought an L-Rock, and the neighbor has an Octavia, and he said to me, I noticed the thing on my car, and it's like as if like they didn't finish it in the factory. And then I had a look at the neighbor's car, and she has it as well. It's like this plastic thing sticking out of the windscreen. And I said, that's for a car park ticket. And he was like, and I could tell he was
mind blown.
He was like, "Jeez," like he didn't say "Jesus, that's good," but I could see he was like,
right, okay.
So, you know, no matter how many times you've told someone there's an ice scraper in the fuel flap of a Skoda, maybe not everyone has heard about it, or there's a dash cam port in your BYD. So yeah, it's really important to find those little bits and then to shoot them as well. Like, I'm not going to start naming names, but there are people in this business on film who will just tell you because they're looking at the thing, but don't show you the thing they're talking about.
Yeah.
And yes, that does take more time filming it. But that's the difference. I'm giving away my secrets now.
How do you like? This is a charge that comes, to a lot of us sometimes. How do you stay honest when reviewing cars that are being loaned to you by a manufacturer? And it's often been said, okay, you're brought to a launch. There's a nice hotel. There's we'll get onto the foreign ones later, but even domestically, you're given your lunch. There's a nice person talking to you. You do your press conference, and then here's a car for a week. It's an obvious question, but people will ask it, like, how do you stay honest and neutral when reviewing a new car?
All of the car people I've encountered really in Ireland, they're all lovely people. You're going to have to spend time with them, which isn't a chore because their company is usually very, very good. They're very kind people. They want to make sure you're, and sometimes embarrassing. So, look, I'm just here to do my job. You're as important as I am. Stop making out that, I get that PR people are, and probably it depends on the person as well. Some people are probably a bit more like, no, that person's grand, so don't be worrying about. But there are people, I've overheard conversations who they'll be a bit wary of, depending on who they write for, and make sure they're happy. And they couldn't fly at that time. They'll need to get a better flight because so that stuff does go on. And I remember asking on an international trip recently. There was a guy who was an ex-journalist and now he's working on the Renault side. And I said, how important is it that these cars are checked for journalists? And he goes, you wouldn't believe. He said every time a car comes back to the hotel, doesn't matter if we're 3 weeks into the wave of testing with different countries, that car will be driven for at least 20 minutes by a member of the team to make sure that everything's still fine with it. So yeah, it's hugely important. And you respect that as well, because look, if someone's taking what you do seriously, great. So then in turn, you have to respect them. And I've no time for people that are doing stuff to sensationalize themselves. You have to, like, I know someone who once made a point about a sun visor in a Seat Tarraco feeling cheap compared to a Volkswagen. And it was pointed out to this person who no longer reviews cars that it's the exact same sun visor, and brands are more than entitled to pull you up on that if you do that carry on, because that's just that's not reviewing a car. Reviewing a car is going through the facts, the stuff that everyone can tell you about, and then adding your opinion on it. And the more cars you do, the longer you're doing it, the more that opinion is based on a wider range of cars. No one has ever said to me, go easy on us, or, and I could count on less than one hand anytime I've had any sort of correspondence with a brand about something that was said that maybe they didn't like.
Oh, it's changed then. Because in my day, it used to be a little different with the correspondence, but there you go. It's another
maybe
story.
You were even more harsh.
I think it was a different time. There wasn't so much video around. I would have been writing mainly for the Irish Times, and there was a lot of focus on what you were saying, and they were very touchy. Certain brands in particular were very, very touchy, and you would have to remind them, I don't work for you. I'm employed by the Irish Times to give my honest opinion on a vehicle and whether I think someone should put their money down for it. And if you're not, it's not for you to say that my opinion is incorrect. If it's a fact, fine, we change it. But not if it's an opinion, matter of opinion. That's a matter of opinion.
And I think if you always have the potential customer in mind, which is really important. Like in radio, you're talking to one person, and you can apply the same logic to reviewing a car. Really, put this imaginary person. Like in radio, they have these cutout caricatures of the ideal typical listener. Here's Debbie. She's 42. She's got 2.5 kids, and she drives a Renault Kadjar.
Demographics,
it helps you focus the mind, and it's the same. And and maybe it's different if you're reviewing supercars, which I never have and never will do. But it's the basic stuff. It's like it's noticing something is missing from the new model of X car because the brand has clearly started to cut corners somewhere and costs to save a few quid, and it's noticing that stuff. And again, having that range, if that's the best word for it, to be able to compare and contrast with cars. That's what adds clout. And I suppose the whole point of being honest is, if you want people to be able to trust and believe what you're saying, then when I say your car is really good, that means it is really good. Like, let's take a MG. I was pretty impressed with the MG S5 this week. Was I as impressed with the MG 4X Power? No, but there's a reason I said what I said for both cars. So and that's the whole point of being able to trust.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's two sides of that as well. There's one side which is now that there are lots of journalists who are in the game, who will say everything's great and nothing's wrong, and they're not really doing a service to anyone who's consuming their media, however big or small their audiences may be. But and then we have a new situation where there are so-called influencers who are paid now by manufacturers to produce content, which is marked or sometimes isn't marked, and that is not serving anyone at the other end either. Is that a tricky world to navigate?
I don't think it's tricky in the sense that they don't, for the most part, brands don't mix journalists and what you call there as influencers. So influencers will be someone who'll take a car for the weekend, or they might have a long-term deal, and you'll see a post on Instagram. This person probably has lots of followers, and they'll be talking about the fact that the car has a sunroof that opens and it's got heated seats for those really cold mornings when you're coming back in from a surf. And I can't answer for brands. Does that give them a value? I suppose in one sense,
it gives them an audience.
It gives them an audience. It's going to give them a very positive response to their car. So for them, it's a no-brainer. It's probably a marketing budget. They have to give someone a car for a weekend or a week or 3 months, whatever it is. Cost them nothing, and they get to push their car. And it's no different to what 20 years ago would have been a full page ad in the newspaper. It's just it's the way you do it today. So I totally get why they exist. I totally get why they're valuable to brands. I've spoke to brands a little bit about it. They say there's a car review is definitely a more valuable asset to them, but it's advertising for the modern social media world, and that's all it is.
What do you think are the biggest misconceptions people would have about the job that you do?
One, that you get paid a fortune. I mean, motoring journalism by its nature, unless you're people like Jeremy Clarkson and Chris Harris and stuff, it's never been a massively well-paid job. I mean, it depends who you're writing for, and if you're writing for someone who's paying your wages every week, probably better than someone who's doing it for themselves. I am at the mercy of YouTube's algorithm, and April every year for some reason is so bad. I don't know if it's Easter holidays, what it is, but its revenue just dives in April. Revenue dies in August, and I have to kind of build that into. Well, I still have the same expenses every month. So that's one. Two, that you get paid by the brands to say things about their car. That literally, like, if that was the case, I could never say anything negative about a car.
Of course you do.
Because you couldn't.
No.
Like, if someone's paying you to... And, there are people who will do sort of paid editorial. So they're still kind of reviewing the car, but they're just pointing out the good things about it. Have I been asked to do those things in the past? Yes. Have I done them? No. Have I ever done anything paid for with brands? Yes, sometimes, but it's very clearly, if it's a reel or something, it's not really a YouTube video. So yeah, I think the big misconception is that, look, obviously you have to have relationships with people in these brands, but they're doing a job, you're doing a job, and if everyone's fair, then there aren't really any issues. But yeah, the idea that BMW are giving me an X3 this week and they're paying me €3,000 to drive it, I wish. Now there probably is some, BMW do have ambassadors and they have people who do stuff with them, and they are absolutely getting paid. I was on a recent press trip with BMW in the UK, and the next day the influencers were coming out and they were also talking about BMW in a different way.
But then the manufacturer knows what's going to be said at that point. Exactly. So
yeah, in fact, probably they would probably get a plan as to what they want you to say.
Yeah, script. talk to us about the foreign press trip, because often we see you do reviews, and I've been there before myself, where you're standing in a sunny climate, side of the road, beautiful sunshine, or in the lobby of a hotel doing a review. Is it as glamorous as it looks from the outside?
I don't want to say it's a chore, because it's definitely not a chore. You're going to a lovely hotel. You're going usually somewhere sunnier than home. And, you're getting some lovely food. Scenery's nice. You literally can't buy a bottle of water without someone saying, I'll get that for you. And I suppose that might be also somewhere where it plays into people's minds that, oh, sure, the brands. Again, it's like any work trip. If you're on someone's time at that moment, you're kind of their responsibility. That doesn't mean that because someone bought you a hotel room for the night, you're gonna say huge things. In fact, Audi are one brand who will ask you in your piece to write the fact that they have paid for your flights and accommodation, and it has no bearing whatsoever on your review.
Right, that's new.
I don't know why Audi do that, and I literally haven't seen it from any other brand. It's just Audi.
It's a good line.
It is a good line.
So it's an early start though, right? Often.
Often, yeah. I mean, like 10% of the time, it's a nice 10:30 flight out to Barcelona, and everyone's delighted because you're not up at the crack. Now, I live reasonably close to Dublin Airport. It's not too bad. I can get there in sort of 10-15 minutes if it's silly clock. But yeah, you can be up at 5:10, 4:30. You don't really sleep the night before because you wake up a few times worried that you've missed the flight. Yeah. Then you'll get there. You may have been on a cramped Ryanair for a few hours. You're tired. Then it's bright. So you're eating at different times. You're trying to be reasonably healthy. A lot of these events have everything is pastry, everything is sausage rolls. It has been getting better over the last maybe year or so, I've noticed.
Were you there with me when I tracked one day's press launch on MyFitnessPal?
No, but you have told me about this. So this is like one of these calorie trackers.
Yeah, I just decided for the crack to track literally everything that I'd eaten in a day, and it was about 8,500 calories.
Oh God!
Between glasses of wine, dessert. Those that every time you stop, there's some Parma ham somewhere.
Yes,
or something wrapped in bacon.
But no one else does ham like the Spanish do ham.
They don't.
It's just like
so. Right, you've done. You've arrived. You've been given 18 meals. It's the thing, and of course the thing that you never have had to experience, which was a road book and a map. You're in the car, sat nav, and away you go. So the drive tends to be about a couple of hours.
It can be, or it can be if you're just getting to location and the driving is the next day. It's sort of maybe half an hour to an hour to the hotel location. Hopefully on the flight out, your PR person has given you a press release about the car, so you can kind of go through this. And kind of reviewing a car at an international launch is a bit like doing an exam. You get this huge chunk of information. You have that in the back of your head. You're then trying to give your own opinion as you would. You're trying to film it. You mightn't have a location because you're in somewhere you don't know. I've actually now started leaving favorites on Google Maps where I go back to, I know Nice now. If I was to go to Nice right now, I can tell you 4 different places I know I can film.
So do you have to film that video within the time of the route? Or do you, because that's, no, I mean, they can be quite tight, I remember.
The only limitations really would be if it's wintertime and darkness. Now, sometimes they do say, oh, we need the car back by 4:30. And there has been a few times where I've sort of said, listen, I'm gonna skip the presentation because I really need to get this car filmed. And that happens a lot as well, where the presentation's on the first evening, which is fine for people who write. But if you're filming, chances are you've already filmed the car. So that's another aspect that should change really. And also these embargoes that are at midnight when everyone on YouTube is asleep, but I get it from a printing point of view, but again they're kind of legacy traits that maybe should change. So yeah, what sometimes will happen is the the brand will provide you with, or the international brand will provide you with a video team on location, so that there'll be a camera crew who can film you at the hotel. It does take the pressure off a little bit. They just send you everything you've said in the footage. Never, ever, ever has anyone edited that footage and sent it to me or taken something I said out. Never happened. And then that kind of will help. They also will provide you with footage of that car in that location, in that colour, doing drive-bys and stuff. And again, it takes the pressure off. You don't have to do the same level of filming that you would if you're filming a car in Ireland.
Is it a lot more advanced from that perspective than it was, say, 5-10 years ago in terms of being prepared for you as a videographer?
Yeah, it can still be hit and miss depending on brands. But yeah,
Who does it well?
Volkswagen do it well. Ford do it very well. Volvo do it well. Lexus do it incredibly well.
Right. Okay.
Lexus will shoot 17 different colors in 16 different backgrounds in rain and sun. Like it's like the cars. They over engineer absolutely.
So they'll have a cameraman, and you just have to just present. You can focus on the presenting only.
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah,
that's
exactly.
not really.
Now, look,
that's got to help, right?
it does help. You can go off and do. See, the problem as well now is because more and more people are doing video. The brand might only have one, maybe two max videographers. So then you're waiting, and the weather might be good now, or might be getting dark 2 hours, and you're like, So I'll always bring my camera gear with me as well, just in case I need. Because especially if I'm traveling with a group of Irish guys, and I know two of them also want to do video, and maybe they don't normally. We can either help each other out, or they don't always film themselves, and I know if I have my gear, I still get the same video. And actually, do you know what? I think it's true for all video. The more polished a video is, in terms of if it looks too corporate, and that's the only danger with using the best videographers, maybe in one sense, it nearly looks too, not contrived, but just it's too polished. It looks too commercial.
Well, I imagine the algorithm doesn't like a video that looks the same as the next one either, does it?
There's possibly a bit of that as well. Yeah, I heard Shmi talking about this recently, where he was saying, I'll actually wait 3 months to put out a video. And it's easy for him to say, he's so many followers, but he's like, we'll all be in the same car in the same location, and what's the point? I work off the basis of, well, if it's a new car launch, just get it out there because people want to see it.
I think that's the case as well with a lot of those, those sort of first reveals of cars in the studio.
Yeah.
Every video looks the same.
Yeah,
it's just remove presenter, input other presenter.
Yeah, but they can, from my perspective, and I know print guys kind of don't bother with them as much because
what's the point? But they don't get big for you now, though. Yeah.
For me, you can have a video blow up because it's a first look. Like I did the Dacia Bigster last quarter of 2024 in Berlin, I think, and like it's done 160,000 views, and for me that's huge. There's a decent, that's probably well over €1,000 worth of YouTube ads on that video now. That does help.
Is there a lot of pressure to be first with a review, or is it just more about doing it well?
I'd rather be right and second than first. I mean, yeah, first is in your mind, but I'm lucky enough now that I've decent enough subscriber following and stuff like that. So even if I'm not first, as long as within a day or two of everyone else, it'll possibly do all right. It's no guarantee, but yeah, I'd rather make sure it looks right, it's edited right, you've got all the facts correct, and that you haven't missed stuff, because you can miss stuff rushing. Of
all the places you've been, what has been the one sort of country or car event that stood out in your mind?
I'm going to Iceland in a few weeks. I've never been to Iceland.
Oh, it's amazing.
And because it's summertime, the sun doesn't really set. So I think we're driving at midnight.
Yeah, that bit is very strange, trying to sleep there. I've been there a couple of times. Excellent place.
Sweden, beautiful. I've been to Finland, driven on frozen lakes. I've been to Slovenia twice.
Have you done any of those epic Mazda journeys?
Did an epic Mazda journey around Morocco. That was 1,200 kilometers in 2 days. Yeah, you get to see some lovely places. I haven't been to America yet on press trips. Haven't been to places like China. I'd certainly be interested in America. So yeah, look, and they are the nice parts of it. You get to see a lot, but it is high pressure. As I said, there is an exam vibe about it. And then even when you get back to the hotel after filming, chances are there's a presentation in half an hour. You need to grab a shower. You're trying to ring home, see if everyone's okay. You're then going for dinner. You're talking more about the car. Depending on who else from Ireland is there will be more beers than less beers. And look, everyone is a responsible adult. You can say no, but us Irish,
we've sometimes one slips and falls into us at some stage.
Yes.
If there's one thing you could change about the job, what would it be? More time on events? More geared towards video?
more people to film you at these events. Definitely, maybe more time. I would rather skip a coffee. Like there's so many stops on these events.
Yeah, they're trying
Again,
to
I don't
cater
know.
for a lot of
Yeah,
audiences.
there's a coffee stop, there's a cake stop, and you're kind of going, look, can we just? I'll just crack on by myself and see you back at the hotel at 4:30. I think especially if you're doing a freelance way of working, you're very used to kind of working on your own
Yeah.
steam and having to kind of be at different times and places when you go to these things that someone else telling you where you can and can't film is a bit weird. What else? I'd love the Irish, and this is nothing the brands can really do about it, but sometimes the HQ brand will say, oh well, we won't invite the Irish on this trip because sure, they only sell X amount of that model in this country, or they don't sell a Passat at all anymore, so we won't bother having them. What I find is I'm lucky enough that I get a significant proportion of my views from the UK, so I'd kind of like to be treated sometimes like a UK YouTube person, and because people aren't going to not watch me because I have an Irish accent.
No, it might be a draw.
And if I get it, if it's coming out of a local budget here in Ireland, well, why would they pay for you to go to a UK event? I do get that as well. But I think the boundaries of motoring content has changed with video, and it doesn't really, like, not only that, you can now watch me in Japanese if you like. There's a dub feature on YouTube. Wouldn't recommend it. Looks weird.
That I have to see.
Or Mandarin or German or whatever, and like it's pretty good. Like the transcription is, and the voice is pretty good. So
AI
I think we
Nobby.
we need to kind of, or HQ brands need to kind of realize that maybe things have changed with YouTube.
Finally, what advice would you give to someone who wants to do this for a living? Not that you need more competition.
I suppose just
I can help you there a little bit. Is that don't ask for the best car straight away. From someone who's been a journalist and who's also been a PR person, go in and ask for the Clio or the Dacia Spring. Don't go in and ask for the 911, and because the more the start small, you're most likely to get a start.
I definitely agree with that. And to be honest with you, for all the M5s and cars like that I've driven, Audi RS7s and stuff, they're only a tiny proportion of what the job is and what the views count for. And a Skoda Fabia will get you just as many views, probably more actually. So yeah, just be humble, get to know people, respect people that are doing the job longer than you. Don't see them as dinosaurs, whatever way you want to describe it.
Because you one day will be the dinosaur.
Well, that's it. You will one day be the dinosaur, and certainly, I'm only in my early 40s, but I worked in radio for a long time, and I saw people come and go with the exact same sort of attitude. And some people that you just knew by day 2, I was like, I'll give them 6 months. And it's the same thing. So yeah, just be respectful of people who may be looking at you as, who's this newcomer now coming in, trying to rattle the cage a bit, and be willing to learn and listen
and work hard.
And work hard, yeah,
exactly.
It is hard work.
Exactly,
it is hard work.
Well, Mark, that's good. Thank you for that. Thank you for interesting insight into the world and behind the curtain a little bit. But it is the best job in the world, really. Though it's one of the best. Yeah,
no, it's a lot of crack. It's a lot of fun. It doesn't really feel like you're doing a real job. Radio is like that as well, so it's nice to be able to kind of compare them that way. I've never had food poisoning, unlike you. Touch wood.
Oh, yes, I have. Yeah, I remember that Peugeot launch back in Portugal. I don't eat shellfish at all. It's not that I'm allergic to it; it just doesn't like me. And we were at a Peugeot event, and it was one of those ones where there was a time where Peugeot it almost was like some sort of endurance test. We got there, hadn't, just straight into the cars, driving some unfeasible length of time through mountains and hills and stuff. And I got back and I was starving, and sat down, and they'd brought us to this very fancy hotel which specialized in seafood. So everything was seafood platters, seafood, bloody smoothies, God, you name it. And I ate it, and I went back to my room, sort of, and then suddenly, when you know.
Was this middle of the day?
No,
late
this was
at night?
night time now. So I'd eaten the dinner,
Okay.
went back. I was tired, so I didn't do the sort of 8,000 pints or the like. So I just went back to the room, and it started. And I mean,
say no more.
I don't want to go into details, but suffice to say that every place that it could exit was covered.
Yep.
And I had to be, I pretty much didn't remove myself from the room for the whole rest of the event, and it was good in terms of weight loss. I'll give it that, but yeah, that I cannot look at a muscle, a prawn, or anything,
or a
Peugeot, exactly. But like, sorry, we probably need to create some sort of whatever the podcast equivalent of OnlyFans is, to do a set of versions for some of the other stories I could relay about events over the years. But we might need to have some sort of subscription service for that.
Oh God! Well, a picture or a voice story can paint 1,000 words.
Exactly. Well, look, that's it for this week's Drivers Republic podcast. Do join us again next week. Do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a review, because that does help. Reach out to us if you have a question. driversreviewpodcast@gmail.com. And from myself, Paddy, and from Mark,
we'll see you next time.